Hi everyone, good afternoon, and welcome to Spiritual Split Splash, episode 16. And these are helpful, hopeful, heartfelt conversations that guide to greater well-being. And I love to have radiant human beings here join me in great discussion about all things spiritual and journeys and individual awakening experiences. And today I am so excited because I'm going to be joined by David Smart. David is a published author of a beautiful book. It's a thru-hiking memoir. It's called The Trail Provides. And it just details this entire journey that he had hiking with Bradley Lavelle, his best friend and spiritual brother, who's also here on an earlier episode on the Split Splash. And he just chronicles just how the trail provides everything we need in the moment. I'm so delighted to have him talk about this book. And this spiritual journey he's been on has taken him so many places, Vipassana retreats, to Pokhara, Nepal, to study with an amazing spiritual teacher named Sajana, who will be with us next week, hiking and trekking through the Himalayas with a Tibetan Lama. David has had so many incredible experiences, so he's going to be here with us now to share them. So delighted to bring him on. Hi, David.
Hey, Karen.
I'm so happy you're here. This is so great to be doing this with you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I am so excited you're here, and I'm so happy to be sharing you with everybody. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm very nervous and I'm very excited at the same time.
No need.
I've never gone live before, Karen, so it's a big deal. Yeah,
oh,
it's a big deal.
Well, welcome. I'm so happy you're here for this experience.
Yeah.
So, what I like to do, really just chronicle a bit about your journey because it's so rich and deep and full of gems. So if you could just give us a big overview and then we can kind of, unpack parts of it to share with everybody. I'd really appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I try and find the gems as I go. Sometimes I'm more successful than other times, but I enjoy the journey. So, yeah, I mean, I guess for me, where I begin my story, usually how I tell it, is that I graduated from college in 2013. I lived a very privileged life. Yeah, I feel very grateful for my upbringing and where I've come from. And at the same time, I felt like once I got working and I held a job in digital marketing, which was a corporate job and a very good job. But I became disillusioned by what I was experiencing there. And I just wanted something different. Like, I was making money and I had all this money, and yet I didn't know what I was saving for. I didn't know, there was a thing called retirement, but that felt like ages away. And I didn't want to delay my life too much. I think it was Tim Ferriss's book. I don't know if you've gotten into Tim Ferriss before.
I like him.
Yeah, I picked up the 4-Hour Work Week, and that was kind of a big early shift for me, realizing that I needed to create my life consciously and start making some different decisions.
And that's how it started.
That's how it started, yep. And so from there, I called Bradley, who had been through, we were actually fraternity brothers in college. And he's the one who told me about the Pacific Crest Trail. So
I just went for people who don't know what that is, explaining this is pretty intense.
So it seems like a lifetime ago. This was in 2015 for me. So it seems like it's a dream. But yeah, the Pacific Crest Trail is a 2,650 mile trail that goes from Mexico to Canada.
Right.
Through California, Oregon, and Washington. And it was just an incredible experience.
You hike it by foot?
I did. Yeah, we did.
over a long period of time, right?
It took 6 months to hike.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just such a different experience for me coming from the corporate life, thinking that, my life had to be a certain way. And suddenly it had taken this huge turn that I wasn't expecting, and I had never done anything like that before. I'm a city boy, Karen. I enjoy the towns. I enjoy the city, and
you're out in the wilderness, just
Mhm.
hiking day and night, right? Or did you stop to sleep?
We slept.
Okay,
We
you
did
slept.
sleep. Yeah, there was some sleeping. But it was a lot of walking. And so after that was done, it was kind of felt like I was right back where I'd started in a lot of different ways. Like it was such a beautiful experience and a unique experience. And I think that kind of like brings us to meditation and how, well, it brought me to meditation in the
Okay.
sense that, Bradley told me about Vipassana after that. So I
Yeah.
started going to Vipassana retreats and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And seeking enlightenment, seeking interesting experiences. And, I think where that's led me is to really just accepting my experience rather than seeking these like phenomenal trips or these like
Okay.
unique insights, and
Yeah.
really just getting into loving my experience and accepting the cards that I've been dealt. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, still attempting to consciously create my life and
Yeah.
move forward in the best way that I can. And at the
But you
same
had,
time,
but you had
just
those real
surrender.
experiences. I mean, you traveled, like you were after Vipassana, you were like in Pokhara, Nepal, then you
Mm,
trekked the Himalayas, and you went to Australia and fasted. I mean, your your experience has been so unique and exciting to watch, exciting to observe and see
thank you,
how you're
Karen.
growing through them.
Yeah, I definitely skipped over a few events there. So I appreciate you bringing me back to those. Meditation journey kept me going, and
Yeah.
meeting such a wise teacher in Sajana, who I'm
Yes.
excited to listen to her episode next week or
Yes.
in a week
Yes.
or two, whenever that is.
Yes. Next week. Yes. It's so great to have her come on. And
Yeah, and
we're going to
so
talk a bit about that because I want to
mm,
share your experience and your insights because that's just such a once in a lifetime, at least I felt for me, experience, and I'd love to hear you talk about that. But I just want to give like the big broad strokes. So you had
mhm.
corporate America going into a wilderness hiking experience over 6 months, introduction to Vipassana meditation. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this type of meditation, it's a 10-day residential course where you stay on a campus and you're progressively taken through a series of like 3 techniques for meditation, and really to get an experiential experience where you're taken through it to learn in the moment how it can help you, right? So and then you practice that, I imagine, over a period of time. Went to Poker with Bradley,
Yep,
Australia
yep.
fasting, and then you wrote a book in the midst of all that, which is an amazing, beautiful memoir. And now we're all kind of static. We can't travel in this pandemic the way we used
Hmm.
to. So how are you now? You mentioned a little bit earlier. It's less about the seeking and the journey. Explain a little bit more of that because that's fascinating. Because you were moving around and doing a lot of it, like kind of high impact spiritual discovery.
Yeah. I think for me, it's just been a deeper realization of like, okay, wherever I go, there I am type thing,
Yeah.
and seeing that. Yeah, I think it's wonderful to seek out those interesting experiences, and everything builds on top of the next thing still. But yeah, I guess where I'm at right now is, I'm living with my parents.
Yeah.
I'm 29 years old,
Okay.
and, sometimes I can be self-conscious of that. I'm in this space that not a lot of people my age are in.
Right.
And a lot of my friends, a lot of my friends are married
Absolutely.
these days,
Yes.
Karen, and
Yes. I can imagine. Yeah.
some of
I
them have
relate. Hmm.
babies and
Yeah.
families. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
and right now that's just a pipe dream for me or my parents to have, think that they're going to
Yeah.
get grandchildren anytime
Yeah.
soon.
You never
But
know. Yeah. But I
yeah,
understand. You're walking your own. It's the path. We say the road less traveled.
yes, yeah, and things change, and I
Yeah.
think you know that better than anyone
Yeah.
that we're in one position one day and the
Yeah.
next it's just completely different. And this idea that, I used to think that I would need one purpose in life and that would
Okay.
stay stagnant or the same. And I'm seeing that, my purpose changes from from moment to moment. And I guess there is some greater purpose as well that is overlying and beyond everything I'm doing. But I'm getting to know myself more and more every day in small ways,
and consciously, I imagine, because sometimes we're kind of like, whether we like it or not, we're going to get to know ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Everyone is. Yeah, I don't consider what I'm doing anything special. I think everyone is getting to know themselves and
but when you're conscious,
doing their best.
Yeah, when you're conscious. But what I like about what you're doing and getting exposed to your work and what you're putting out in the world is it's very conscious and it's reflective and contemplative.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Is there something specific you had?
Well, you have these quotes that you've been putting together, and when you were in Nepal, particularly, I liked when you were talking about being an artist of your life and a creator, and tapping into that energy and bringing bringing the process forward, because it's so exciting to feel empowered and know I can create my own life. But when you think artists are constantly experimenting and moving through their mediums, and that's what it brought to me. So it'd be awesome if you could. I would actually just love to hear a little bit more and share with everyone about your experience in Nepal, and go right to that point, because partly because Sajana will be on next week, but I really feel like in those moments there were a lot of birthing of creativity.
Yes. Yep. So, going to Nepal, I went with Bradley, who is, like you said, one of my best friends and hiking partner on the trail. And, I think we get grouped into being a group or being a single individual sometimes, if that makes sense. Like, okay, they're very similar people in the sense that they're kind of doing similar things and walking a similar path. Yeah,
it's so
for
funny
sure.
Because people are like, oh my God,
for sure.
Freaking David on, they're like, oh, he's just like Bradley. Like, I say like 5 people said, oh, he looks just like Bradley. He's right.
Yeah, we both have long hair and beards, and we're 2 white young gentlemen. Yeah, we do share a lot in common.
Yeah.
And I think whenever you join groups or you join a collective, it's easy to lose yourself in that collective. And I think it's simultaneously important to find your individuality and your unique, what makes you unique and what makes you important and special. And very quickly at Sajana's, we realized that, we're 2 very different people. We came in here with 2 sets of expectations.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. Like, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I felt guilty for coming to a wise spiritual teacher and for not having important questions, or for not really having a direction, like what should I ask her about myself. And meanwhile I'm watching Bradley's transformation, and it's something that was very apparent and gross. And meanwhile I'm like, I guess we can take a further step back in that both of us had been doing Vipassana, Bradley more intensely so, and I think you too. You had been more intensely in that realm.
Very, yeah.
And as beautiful as that technique is, and I think once you get into that sort of collective environment, it's important to find your own way as well. And so, having left that environment, I very much started finding my own way in different ways, and that came out through writing and through movement practice and various different ways. Like I'm learning how to play the piano and just weird things.
Yeah.
And I guess that I was affirmed in that once I went to Sajana's. That and I finally did ask her. I was like, "What do you think I should be doing?" Like, I don't know. You're the wise one here.
Right.
And she was like, "Yeah, you've been doing it. You're writing. Like, keep writing, keep sharing, keep sharing your journey." And she's she pointed me back to myself, and I think that's what all the great spiritual teachers do, is that they realize that yes, they've experienced something special, and they have the key for themselves, but they don't have the key for you. You know, they can only they can only do this. They can only point you towards yourself, and it's up to us to kind of follow those pointings.
So well said. And I just want to bring a little background into it. If you're watching this and you're like, who is Nepal? Who's Sajana? What's going on? I just want to give it a context. Over, in this Vipassana community, there was, I guess, people knew of Sajana. And Sajana is a very spiritual master, really somebody who has... is really representing universal love. And it's like, how do you describe someone who's love? It's a different frequency. It's a different level of consciousness. And I know when Bradley was visiting in New York and we caught up, he said, I'm going to Nepal to work with this woman. And I didn't even have to hear anything else. I just knew that I had to go. I just knew. I was like, oh, I have to do this. I knew nothing else. And he's like, okay. It's just sort of like she's an energy. And when you're in her presence, she's able to give you, almost the way the Buddha did, an individual type of guidance that's always connected back to you, ultimately, right? So it is interesting you explain your experience, because how could you not go there with expectation to some extent, And when you've been steeped in this very strong meditative traditions like Vipassana, which I'm so grateful for, really set the tone for my spiritual development. But it was also kind of like I needed a little bit of a rehab after it too, because it was so deep in it. And it was necessary for me to kind of get rebalanced. But I appreciate what you said about returning to yourself. And I kind of want to speak a bit more of that, because it's so tempting when you're on a seeker's path to want to give your power to another. And I've certainly been so many cases where I'm like, just tell me what to do. I'll do it. How did you feel in the presence of that, when you know someone might be able to give you that, but they really can't?
I don't know what it's been for me. Like, I really have never, I've kind of always known that maybe it's just a distrust of authority or perhaps good parenting. I don't know, but
probably,
I really have trusted myself in this process.
Oh, that's so
and great. At the same time, look to teachers as people who are very useful, people who are very helpful, and even students along with that. We're all teachers and we're all students.
So true.
And so I think we can learn anything from anyone. Like, it doesn't even have to be someone special. Although being special, what can it do? I think it can even more quickly point us back into ourselves.
Yeah.
Because they realize that they don't have the answers that at least that you're seeking, that it's up to us.
Yeah.
So
why did you go to Nepal then? If you weren't seeking, was it just for the hiking journey and kind of hanging out with Bradley, or was there a reason?
Well, I had been seeking to some extent enlightenment, and thinking that perhaps there was some technique that she knew of that I was missing.
Okay.
Wanting to just hear a different perspective on the matter, because I knew that based on the little communication that I had with her, that she would have some different type of perspective. I remember Bradley sent her like an initial email that was like, I don't even know if I read it, but what she had sent back was like, you're heartily welcome to come stay here in Nepal if you would like to discover your true nature.
Wow.
And those words, true nature, like really resonated with me, like
beautiful,
because of the background in Vipassana and seeing the inner nature, and my background with hiking and experiencing the importance of being out in nature. This was something that resonated with me. And so I felt that she was special and that she had something to say. I just didn't know what that would look like. And so, I asked her questions like, I don't know, basically I would get into, when I meditate, I can get into these flow states where concepts fade away, and it's just like I feel connected to something beyond myself, and there's timelessness, and all that good stuff. And I was like, Sajana, is that enlightenment? And she was basically like, yeah, that's the place. But I knew that I wasn't enlightened, but yet that's the space of enlightenment.
Beautiful.
If that makes sense.
It
So
does,
like,
yeah.
if only I had the ability to live in that space constantly, I think that'd be something special. Yet I don't feel as if I have access to that all the time. Especially in my waking life, my day-to-day life. And I think that's kind of been the true challenge for me, is really applying my meditation practice off of the mat and just in day-to-day life. And
for everyone, right?
And really just like letting go of the meditation altogether. Because I do think there's, I guess, like using it as a foundation for building on top of. Like I don't think you can just honestly, the more I think that I know, Karen, the less
I know. Isn't that crazy?
The less I know. Yeah.
It's like just get used to not knowing, because if you want to go on that path, it's like you're just going to keep it. Just, oh, I guess I really don't know. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, it's super scary though sometimes, because I'm like, God, I've done all this work and gosh, I just realized that I feel more confused than when I first started. But it's a different level. It's a different level of confusion. By the way, I just want to tell you real quick, you have Sandip Traveler who's saying, do you remember we met in Manaslu, I guess,
Sandeep.
in Nepal?
Yes. What's up, brother? Good to see you, man.
So,
we met briefly while we were
is this hiking? Okay. So after Sajana, so you had this incredible experience with her, going deeper into yourself. What happened after that?
So immediately after Sajana left, we went hiking in the Himalayas with a Tibetan Lama.
Wow.
And it's funny, like expectations, how that played a role in our trekking as well, because I expected our trekking guide to be someone who could provide me answers, and it was just so fun. And he did in a way, but it wasn't through language, because he spoke very little English. And the way he lived, he seemed very grounded and content. And I think it's easy to think that in our lives in the West here that materialism and material things can bring us happiness. And here's Lama Dai with very little, and he just seemed like a very grounded person to me.
Was he a guide? I mean, how does a Lama? So how does a Lama wind up guiding a trek? Is he?
I don't know. He got certified. He got certified, and it proved very useful too, because very few of the guest houses along the way, like no one spoke English, so it was just me and Bradley, and I think we ran into just a couple other trekkers along the way, and I was expecting this to be some grand adventure in likes of our Pacific Crest Trail experience, and so I had all these expectations with
on
wanting to meet people, and just connect with other human beings, and there I am getting pointed back into myself, like, nah, there's not going to be anyone here to talk to, just keep going inward. So,
and this was right after Sajana, so you had been given, or you had that tone, she's like a human tuning fork. It's like, tung, you just like go into that resonance, right? And then you were there, so you were already in that mindset and heart place.
Yeah, it was a good experience. And it's funny, like experiences, because like I was saying before, they just seem like dreams looking back. They just fade away. Everything's so impermanent. It's just funny, like no matter how like insightful or magical some experiences were, I feel like eventually they need to be let go of. And
it's part of it's built in the program, right? It's like
it's built in the hardware. Yeah, I'm already losing it.
But you documented. Is this part of your second book now that you're writing, these experiences?
It is. Yeah.
So we'll be able to be with you on the trail the way you did that with The Trail Provides. Are you going to take us along? Okay.
Exactly. So I've been working on this book number 2, Karen, for about a year now, I
Great.
guess, if you consider writing these initial blog posts part of
Mm-hmm.
that process. And so, yeah, it'll be about my experience with Sajana
Yeah.
and with Lama Dai
Mm-hmm.
and Bradley as well.
And did you write about Australia too?
I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. Yeah. I wanted to keep it within the setting of Nepal.
Nepal. Beautiful.
And so there'll be various different themes of seeking enlightenment
Mm-hmm.
and the difficulties of that, I guess, or
Right.
as well as I'd been seeing a woman before I'd left.
Yeah, I remember you wrote about her a little bit.
And
Yeah.
I did, yeah. And I left, we ended things for me to go on the trek. And yeah, it's, I think I was confused, love and worldly attachments are something separate from, I guess, enlightenment or living a quote unquote spiritual life. I'm just seeing now how it's so integrated. All of it's so aligned, and I'm just, not wanting to skip those foundational steps anymore and just go right to some spiritual state and really just focus on some basic foundations of survival and living, like earning a living. I think maybe you could relate to that.
Oh, please. I'm still working on that myself.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most challenging things in today's world is, or at least for me, I don't know.
Too.
I think some people it can come easy. But really establishing a livelihood that you believe in.
Yes, that's it. It's like, oh, okay, it would be easy. I remember, you ever watched the movie Citizen Kane? It's like, oh, it's easy to make a lot of money if all you want to do is make a lot of money. I remember that quote so deeply because it's like, then you don't really need to have all the integrity and I'm not saying that you can't do it, but when you really want to do it, something you love and something you believe in authentically and with integrity, there's a bit more of alignment that needs to happen before you just decide to go out and do it. And that part, I think, can be challenging, but well worth the building blocks, And then, of course, removing all your limiting beliefs of your self-worth and, which I'm coming up against is like my own worthiness to be able to really do well. I made money when I did something I didn't like, and then I loved something and I made no money, and now I do something I really like, And it's like all those things are, you have to untangle. It's challenging, but I think with the right effort and intention, we get there because it's part of the spirituality. Like I'm finding that's probably my biggest spiritual block now. It's like, okay, yeah, meditation, all this stuff. It's like, this is the real deal. We live in a 3D world. This is part of what we have to do.
Totally. And what limiting beliefs are you coming up against recently, Karen?
My feeling is that can I actually allow myself to be happy and receive and not have to meet the struggle. Like
that's a big one. Yeah.
Can I surrender to just flowing? Because I'm so used to having to overcome and figure it out.
Do you feel like you're in that flow right now with kind of what you got going on, the number of interviews you've got?
No, thank you. And I feel closer to it because I've let go of the need to figure it out prior. So it's like if I just say, oh, okay, I'm going to love my imperfections and I'm going to be, and that's why I really enjoy the live format as well, because it's full of imperfections. When a live broadcast is happening, it's like, this is what, and I'm like, I got to embrace the, I was working in a luxury world for a while where everything had to be perfect and totally detailed. And I think that it kind of, conditioned me in beautiful ways, but also in negatively, and now I'm kind of letting go of those things. Like, okay, I don't have to see the whole picture. I can just get through it. And it's slowly but surely, opening and I have to push myself and I have to get uncomfortable.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Are you, it's like, you have to realize, okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to have to, someone asked me, how much is this? And I'm going to have to come up with an amount and have a structure and a plan. And not be so nomadic and, love my gypsy soul, but build roots, like I'm coming up against a lot of my habits that have been so beautiful and lovely, but now are not going to serve me. When you are in a business, you're responsible, you have to show up every day and you want to, so I get in touch with the why and it flows better. Why am I?
Okay.
Yeah. How about you? Are you facing some of this as well?
Yeah, totally. That's why it deeply resonates with me that,
Yeah.
yeah, the struggle's there for me still.
Yeah.
And, um, yeah, I think still under the belief that that is contributing to some of the wonderful things that I've done.
Right.
That I look back and see like, wow, I really struggled during that hike or during that trek or during that time with Sajana or writing that book, seeing how those things benefited me today. And at the
Totally.
same time, I think that, that story doesn't have to stay with me.
Yeah.
I resonate with what you're saying, like
Yeah.
wanting to just get into that flow and
Totally.
trust the process
Yeah.
and seeing where that leads. And at the same time, I don't feel as if I'm in that stage of existence yet. I need to, like, for instance, I'm writing book 2 right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, writing is very much a struggle. It's a very disciplined process where I have to sit down and I have to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like I need that. I need that discipline to come out the other side.
Oh, totally.
And
And when you love something and you have to put structure on it, it's like you start to get the love-hate. You're like, I used to
yeah,
love this, but now I have to structure it.
yeah, it's that idea of making your hobbies your
Yeah.
livelihood, and then
Yeah.
losing kind of that natural creative flow that you once had with it.
Yeah.
I think the potential is there to let go of the struggle and
Hope
to just
so.
live in the flow. And I just think for me, I'm still in that survival state where I realize I need to be making an income.
Oh, me too.
The sooner
I
the
dip in
better
that.
type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like if I can get book 2 out, maybe I can move out of my parents'
Expedite
home
it.
and start
Oh,
living and stuff in
oh,
my
I
own
understand.
place or
I
something like
understand.
that.
Yeah.
So, maybe after that I'll be a little bit more settled. Maybe the drive will just even kick up and I'll have to
Yeah.
learn the process all over again. Like, nah, dude, you should have just surrendered while you were there.
I love that word you're using when we have someone rise with Crystal saying, trusting the process is so hard. I just want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I relate, we were talking about this. It's like you just want to have that creativity flow and be in it and you want to be free. And I love that word surrender because it's like, okay, when you realize or you try to get in touch with the fact that everything is on divine timing, every single thing. I say, what do I have to do? All I can do is aid in the process, do my part. But
Totally.
I'm living with my mom too. I always say, oh gosh, if I could just get that one more thing, that's going to be then I'm going to get my own place. And I don't know if they're always logically set like that, so we spend a lot of time trying to like figure it out. Right. And then something else happens. So it's a
Totally. And
process.
I think everyone's different. Like we
Yeah.
each have to listen to ourselves
Yeah.
and there's going to be these external societal pressures to do certain things or to be certain ways. And really those are, just inherited. And so they become internal and they're just pressures we put on ourselves. And
Like we take
for
it
me,
on. I agree with that. But for you
yeah.
now, are you debunking some of these for yourself? Because you're in
Oh,
it. Yeah.
I have to. I
Yeah.
have to because otherwise there's too much resistance. Like being someone who's living with their parents, who isn't traditionally employed, it's almost like my ego needs to build new internal solutions to
I like that.
my conditions that I'm living in. And so I have to, it's not that I have to, I think I guess it's adaptive.
It is.
To begin to look inward for those answers or for those expectations or for
Yeah.
just the way I want to live rather
Yeah.
than looking outside of myself
Oh God. But
for external approval.
So like, where do you live? Oh, with my parents. Although I have to say that I happen to be working with so many people who are like yourself. We're all on our path and we're very dedicated to living in our purpose. And many, many, many of these people are also living at home with their parents. So maybe it's a rite of passage. I don't know.
Yeah, let's just say that makes us look a little bit better.
Kind of more socially
And
acceptable.
yeah, especially during these times of COVID.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people. Yeah, I'm living with them because of COVID. Like had to move back in.
Yeah.
That's how it
But
goes.
But you know, okay, Bradley says, letting go of the struggle was impossible for me until I finally embraced that I love the struggle and my insanity. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Well, how do you love the
Oh, that's
struggle? I mean,
funny, man.
it's like I do love it too. It's like without it, it almost like, oh, it's too easy.
Yeah, the struggles there, the insanity's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all these things exist within us. And, for a while there, like being at home, living with the internet. I don't know about you, Karen, but I'm a big YouTuber. Like I
Yeah.
enjoy
Love.
watching YouTube videos. And so I'll go down YouTube holes.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, there's just a lot of demonization of the outside world, of other people, of other tribes, of other individuals. And yeah, for me, it's like that insanity, that chaos, that evil, it exists within me.
Sure.
And it's
brilliant. Yeah.
it's super easy to get sucked into thinking that, the problems of society or the problems of your own life exist with outside of yourself and with other people. I got sucked into that hole for a while.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now,
I'll be back again. It's a nice, comfortable hole to live in when the problems of my life are because of other people.
Right. So expand a bit on that a little bit. Like, so you're saying now what did you learn from being in that place? It's you.
Totally. It's totally me. And I think it's easy to be discontented with the state of society, and especially if you watch the news.
Oh, please, yeah. There's always something wrong.
You become informed, yet you become misinformed at the same time. Or at least that's what I was finding. And I was digging into, okay, these narratives that we're being presented with aren't necessarily reality. And there's just a lot of division, and that's the way that the incentive structure is set up that way once you follow the money. And so it's a deep hole that
it is a deep hole. And I think but I like that you acknowledge it's there, and I don't necessarily think it's bad to be aware of it. I think it's good. Like, there's no good or bad. It's like informed is what you need at the time, right? I think we're really given at any moment exactly what we need for that moment, and then it's when we can say, hey, I'm gonna let go of that now and take the next thing. Sometimes we're given philosophies that are only supposed to be with us for like a hot minute,
Totally.
And then we get what we need and we move to the next thing. Another time we're supposed to be with it for a while and work with it. But ultimately, it's to supersede it, I feel. And I learned that in my development. It's like, okay, what I thought 5 years ago is completely different. And I feel now, and some things have woven through, but I think it's so wonderful in the big picture that we do live in a world now where we have access to all this information, but there is a certain responsibility we have in navigating it. Because you could get so caught up in it and then just become it and be just a miserable human being.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking about before is surrendering your identity to a collective rather than an individual. And I think it's important, at least for me, I think it's important for me to have my own individual purpose that fits within the greater collective. And it doesn't necessarily work the other way around, or it doesn't work as well. Like, I guess for me, my heart and what I feel inside myself is that my heart craves some individual purpose. And whenever I get into like tribalism or choosing sides on different things,
good point. Great point.
Doesn't resonate with me. And I see the truth. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's perhaps how I was raised as a child. My parents fought a decent amount when I was little, and I didn't like that. I wanted everyone to get along and play nice. And so I've adopted this role of facilitating togetherness or unity or whatever you want to call it, and just trying to see the grains of truth in everyone's perspective.
Yes. Oh,
and
beautiful. And that's
pointing everyone to those truths.
If we're all one, but we have our unique lens and way of expressing it, then my gosh, that is permission to do so, because we're built that way. We have something, Rise with Crystal says, so true. I felt like I was dissolving in corporate America. I need to help people.
Totally. So that's one problem that the corporations are facing right now is it's just a huge challenge to get a lot of people together and to create a common narrative and still have those people feel as if they're individuals and contributing to something great.
It's interesting. I never really looked. This is like, okay, so guys, David has a blog, Thinking with David. So you're right. And actually, you're really making me think differently about that. I never thought. It's so true. It's like there's like two forces going. It's like getting people together, but then this inner urge, like as people awaken now more and more, of needing to express or help others. Oh, that's going to be interesting how that reconciles. Now I get a little bit deeper perspective on it.
Totally. Like if you're considering starting a business or starting a movement, at some point people are going to start to want to do their own thing in some way. And, whether that's being an entrepreneur, like within the business, starting something that's theirs that they can own and feel like worthy and feel as if it's something that they can own and that they're contributing to. And I'm seeing that's a big hurdle that a lot of companies are having right now. Is they might have some bigger mission, but yet the individuals feel as if they're cogs in a machine, and that's not good. That's not good.
No. And maybe that worked. Like I was watching something or reading something where it was like in the industrial age, it needed to be that way, and that we were going from an agrarian economy to a more industrialized economy, and we had to automate things with the assembly line, and everybody had to fit in. But the economy's even changed. I mean, beyond then, of course, with the digital age, and now also what's happening energetically on the planet, people awakening, it doesn't feel right anymore. Like a lot of people, even people who aren't even into spiritual stuff, they're like, I'm just not really jiving with this corporate thing, especially if you have some sort of inclination of realizing unity and oneness and developing your spirituality.
Yes. And at the same time, this isn't to demonize corporations. I think
of course not.
Corporations will, in some form or fashion, always be in existence. And by always, I don't know, the next 1,000 years or so. But, because I think it could transform into something different. But like government, corporation, nonprofit, movements, things like this, these are ways that humans organize. And it's just about manifesting healthier versions of these things.
Very well said.
So I'm curious to see how that plays out, because I think that is
something
and it will. That a lot of people are running into.
It'll just transform. I mean, over time, everything kind of does. But I like that you're kind of like the way you're phrasing it. It kind of like groups the thoughts of it. It's like, oh, this is really happening, and this is something that you can observe and put attention to. But I want to also bring attention to your socials. Where can people find you and all of your information?
That's a good question. I'm here and I'm gone sometimes. I feel more introverted these days, and I've been spending less and less time on posting on social media and whatnot. But please, if you're wanting to connect, find me on Instagram, find me on this platform right here.
Okay. You have a website too still? Or you still have a blog, even if they're archive posts?
I do, yeah. It's thinkingwithdavid.com, and you can subscribe via email. And I haven't sent out an email in probably a year.
Okay,
but
maybe you will.
It's waiting for something real good. I've got a big email coming up. It's just gonna blow your mind. So.
And also, your podcast, you have a volume there, a library.
I have quite a few, yeah. So I'm curious how your journey in this interviewing people game plays out.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that, how we want to keep it fresh and moving and interesting. I like the live platform though. Everyone's like, how about a podcast? And I'm like, I have a people cast.
A people cast, yeah.
So.
It is cool to see the comments come up and to engage in that
So I just
manner.
want to see here if we've missed anything, because we've been talking here quite a bit of time. We're healing our family, sadly. So a lot of people saying, can struggle be included in the flow? I guess that's a good question. What do you think about that? Can struggle
be included in the flow? Yeah, I mean, it's a paradox. I think the struggle points to the flow. So if we're struggling, I think if I'm struggling, I do feel out of flow. And yet just because I'm out of flow doesn't mean I'm like out of tune with the purpose of my life or going through anything that I'm not supposed to be going through. I think the struggle has been an important part of my life. And yet when I'm experiencing it, I think it's pointing to when I'm not in flow. And so it's a good reminder to maybe try something different or get into a different state. What do you think, Karen?
I feel like it's like when people talk about identity and they have their shadow, it's kind of like that kind of thing. It's like, you need the light with the dark. So I think resistance plays a really key role, because when we're resisting, we could realize we're resisting and let that go. And use that word you brought up before, surrender. So I think it does play in just awareness, So, I don't necessarily feel like I'm in flow when I'm resisting something. So I wouldn't say, or I'm struggling against something, but I do think that we're here to grow. And anyone so many teachers I've been listening to say, if you just come here and everything's so easy, we'll be in the Deva realm. Like, we're here to have some tension and some conflict and come up against our beliefs. But I just think it's how long we choose to spend time there,
right,
and attached to it.
Yeah, it's just another. I mean, there's so many different games you can play in life, and so many different domains you can live in and operate in. And it's just up to you. Like, do you want to play that game of conflicting ideologies and conflict in general? If you're wanting to be in the world, I think it's a game that I'm wanting to navigate more effectively and skillfully, because conflict does seem to be inherent in this life, and how boring would it be if everyone was just the same? Like, everyone had the same ideas, they did the same stuff. We are meant to be diverse, we are meant to be different, and that's the process of evolution. If two organisms that are the same mate, they just produce, I would guess, the same the same offspring.
Marrying your cousin.
Right? It doesn't end up well.
We have a question here from Gail. Are you happier than when you were in corporate America?
That's a good question. I think that word happier, like I feel like I have more purpose in life. I feel like I'm on a different path, a path that I resonate with more. Sometimes I think that I could go back to corporate America if I really needed to, and be quote unquote happy there, because I now have more tools in my toolkit to be happy. Like when I discovered meditation, I remember thinking, I could probably go back and work a job and be happy, because now I have the tools. But as I've gone more and as the years have gone by, I'm just finding more tools that are keeping me from corporate America, because I want to spend more time with those tools. Those tools being meditation or movement practice.
Yes, which I really want to talk about. I discovered your highlight on your Instagram, those movement sequences.
Yeah.
My goodness.
What do you think, Karen?
I am so impressed. I was like, wow. Because it's just you, your body, and your focus.
Yes.
It's beautiful to watch. It's like a mix of like the Tai Chi, felt like a little bit of like the great gracefulness and just strength. So tell us about movement, because I didn't really know what it was when I wrote movement student. I'm like, okay, let's see what that is. And then now it's like yoga. What is it?
So I see that
what is movement
Gail
practice?
is asking what is movement practice. And so it's, Bradley has been a uniting force in my life for a lot of these things. But Bradley's the one who first showed me Ido Portal's video. And this man, Ido Portal, he was a traveler at one point in his life, very interested in different forms of movement. So he would get into capoeira, which I think is a Brazilian art form. He would get into jiu-jitsu. He would get into dance. He got into circus, calisthenics, weightlifting, all these different practices. And I think of it in the same way that I do with meditation, like you have all these different disciplines of a broader category of meditation. And so what Ito realized was, I'm not necessarily interested in one discipline. I'm interested in the broader container of movement. And so he started kind of this culture of what he had learned and different movements that were most applicable to all disciplines and were integrated into just one's everyday life.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so I've found a wonderful teacher here in Dallas with Brian and Carter. Both of them lead up a gym, I guess you could call it, or a dojo or something called the Movement Standard.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I very much enjoy all these different, experimenting with all these different ways to move the body and seeing kind of like a broader, higher level concept of what movement can be and what that can look like. It's continued to consume more and more of my time. Yeah. And I just find myself juggling or doing locomotion or dancing or practicing with my small community of people here in Dallas.
Oh my God, this one is so beautiful. You were like, it looked like you were, I don't know, it's just beautiful. There's one, I don't know what it was. It's like Tai Chi with something else. And then the headstands, I was like, wow, because I know how hard that is. Like I can't even do a cartwheel. I'm so weak. And then it actually made me feel like, man, I better get some core strength going.
I couldn't do any of this stuff. Like I just started in November, and
really?
yeah, I think there's like an initial period of extreme growth and extreme gains, I guess you could say. And just like anything, like there's a learning curve, and then there's a plateau that you reach, or that I've reached. Yeah. And it takes more and more practice to unearth and to dig into the deeper elements, the deeper insights of that technique or discipline or practice. Now,
it's like a meditation for you?
It is in a certain way. Yeah, it really is. It's a flow state when you really can, Ito talks about these 3 different phases or stages of learning the practice. So you start with isolation, and then you move to integration, and then you move into improvisation.
Hey everyone, hello, welcome back to Spiritual Split Splash, episode 16. We're now going to go into part 2.
We're back. It's good to see you, Karen.
Good to see you again. So you were saying?
So I was saying there's these 3 phases of learning. And the first being isolation, the second being integration, the third being improvisation. And so with meditation, I guess the way I think of this would be, learning the skill of Vipassana first and foremost, and using that to move through the body, or, first and foremost using Anapana to focus on the breath on the triangle area in between.
Which is for people who don't know Vipassana, there's a meditation that's taught prior to when you actually go into the body to scan, which is the Vipassana, it's insight meditation. You just focus exclusively for days on this part of your nose. Is like a very intense training to build samadhi and focus. Yeah. So it's like a 2-part. So when you're doing the body, the motion, the movement exercise, you need to develop strength first.
Yes. Okay. I would imagine that technique would be an isolated technique, and you really just focus on getting that right and being in that state. And then you begin, once you've kind of got that isolated state down, you can move into integration. So combining multiple different techniques into one. So using Anapana and Vipassana. Yep. If you get lost in things, you can always come back to Anapana. That's your foundation. And then once you are able to integrate that into your being, you can begin to move into improvisation, which, perhaps you could even begin to mix techniques, which isn't something that I know Vipassana recommends, but I do think at a certain point, if you're looking to really discover more about who you are as a person, there's so many different techniques to figure that out, or to begin to dive in. And so you can begin to improvise with, okay, I know this technique, I know this technique, I know this discipline, and move in and out of flow between the 3, or between all of the disciplines that you're familiar with. And so I think of this is a very helpful
Totally, yeah.
way of learning, I guess, for me.
Yeah, I like that. And it's like an application. Has it helped you to integrate other aspects of your life, the training?
I'm still in the isolation phase,
Okay.
Karen. I'm very much at the beginning,
Oh, I
the
don't know
beginning
about that.
states. But I have noticed myself being more and more able to integrate, different movements together
Yeah.
and have them look objectively a certain quality, I guess you could say. But then, I do enjoy experimenting with improvisation, whether that's through writing or through movement or through meditation. I think that's kind of where the self-discovery really lies, in that stage where you're able to take what someone else has given you and put a twist on it and make it your own.
I love it. And this is like an artist talking. To me, this is what most celebrated artists do. We're the ones who aren't as well known, but just really tapping into that channel of creativity is working with that and building on it. And improvisation is awesome. I try to do that with myself, with a skill set.
That's what you're doing, Karen. That's what I see. We have these ideas in our head and these feelings that we're feeling. And when two people come together, we're attempting to transmit that information to each other.
Yeah.
And it's not always a pretty thing. It's messy. It's ugly sometimes. It can get ugly. But I think you're doing it in a very skillful way. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I do too. And I remember one thing we talked about, had said something that stayed with me, and I just thought it was so lovely, that it's an art. Like you were saying, that we're developing conversation. Do you remember what that was? Because I wanted to bring you back to because I kept it with me and I've been thinking about it.
Totally. Yeah. I think this is a new art form. What's arisen, like podcast. I mean, it used to be radio, I guess, but podcasting in general is now accessible to the average human being. And just having these conversations, I think, is an art form. You see, I don't know, I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, and Joe Rogan is someone who's, I think, is very skillful in conversation. He's had over 1,000 podcast episodes.
Oh my goodness.
And he's someone who, when I'm listening, he can really speak to anyone, and in a detached manner, to where he's not offending anyone, but can really soak in what they're saying and play off of it. And it's a play, it's a game.
Yeah, it's an art.
And we're bouncing things back and forth off of each other. And so, I hope you're having fun
oh my God,
playing
I love
this game.
It's great. I'm like loving sharing and collaborative endeavors. And the more that I go deeper into this path, and I'm trying to understand what I'm supposed to be doing and delivering and serving people, I feel very much connected to sharing other people and collaborations and just people that I admire. I think most of all energetically, because then I know, I'm like, I gained something. There's no way this isn't going to help another. And you just never know who or where or when or how, but there's just a great satisfaction in that.
Yes.
I appreciate very, very much the sharing. And again, like anyone who's giving any time to want to talk about anything with me is a gift, because we certainly have a bajillion things we can spend our time doing. And even the people who are watching now, I'm so appreciative of attention that you're giving to us. And I love the live too, because people can participate. It'd be great if it was even like, a Zoom call when it's like super, in the moment, like you can't do that much here. There's a little lag, but I do appreciate and encourage people to participate, because you feel the energy. It's a different type of conversation we're having when other people are able to participate than just a separate entity.
Totally. Yeah. When I'm seeing the comments, I'm like, oh, wow, this person is really with me in some way.
Right?
It's funny.
So and at that point, I guess I'd like to just invite anyone or everyone, if you'd like to say something or ask a question or, jump in. This live format's relatively new for all of us. So, like you being your first one, and please, it's like you've been on 100 of them by now. You're so great at there's no nervousness or anything. So thank you. But I look at that and I say, people are like, oh, well, can I write something? Do I say something? It's still something that's evolving as a format. And I like that too, because it's still in an ingenuity stage.
Yeah, and I get that some people want to lurk. Some people just want to stay in the shadows and just lurk and watch.
That's true too. Yeah.
do their thing. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Looks like Bradley is still willingly engaged. So that's good. We still got him. Got him on the hook.
Got him in. And Gail's asking, do you recommend daily meditation?
I would ask, I would ask yourself that question. Do you recommend daily meditation for yourself? I see it as an extremely healthy thing to do. I think it's better than not doing anything, I guess, or being lost in your mind and beating yourself up about it. So I think it's important to witness your mind and see what's going on with yourself, and that is a practice. And so even if you're doing a minute or two a day and seeing how that feels within yourself and gradually building that up, following what you think is best.
Yeah. Do you ever feel, David, when you don't meditate? It's like,
yeah, totally. I do. I kind of like the feeling too of I've been experimenting with that. Like I meditated today, but the last time I meditated was probably Thursday, so it's been 2 or 3 days, and and the day I didn't meditate, I was like, oh wow, I get like an hour of my day back. Like what am I going to use with this hour? And I was playing the piano, and it felt like a very productive day. I felt good about it. It's just for me whether I'm avoiding meditation as something that I'm putting off, or really do I just want to be engaged in something else, and knowing that subtle difference between the two things.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because you can feel sometimes like, oh, I want to do it, or it can feel like I'm supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
And that leads to a question that Bradley has. What interaction are you putting off right now for both of you?
What interaction?
You mean like something you're avoiding personally?
Well, if Bradley's bringing himself into this, yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to connect with Bradley and really reach out to him and
me too.
Call him and see how he's doing. I think, I get in these states sometimes where I feel like the other person is happy doing their thing, and that I don't want to be intrusive or to insert myself I feel like there's the right moment to do something. Maybe tomorrow or next week I'll feel better about reaching out to him or reaching out to this person. And I would like to be better at listening to myself and just not having any expectations or just expecting any certain results. Like, okay, if I reach out to Bradley, maybe he doesn't answer, maybe he does. Maybe he's busy, maybe he isn't, but like I made the effort. I felt it within myself that I wanted to reach out to him, and so I did that.
Lovely. Yeah, exactly. It's like regardless of what the outcome is.
Totally.
That probably leads me to what interaction I'm putting off is, having to structure some things and face some things I really don't want to have to, work on, business related. I kind of
what would that be?
I kind of like just be free and create when I want to create and go with the mood and, kind of decide when I want to do something, and I realized that to gain momentum, I need to put daily attention. Finally yesterday, I finally just said, okay, I promised people some video testimonials. So I put the camera on and I went through them, and it wasn't I enjoyed doing it, but I was kept putting it on my list.
Yeah.
It wasn't on my list for 3 weeks. And I was like, why am I avoiding this? And it is a good question that Bradley raises. I was avoiding it. I can't even say why. Because I was like, oh, it's because I don't want to have to put makeup on and get in front of the camera. It was like, that's not the reason. What's the real reason? And I think it's just when we have to, for me, a lot of it is when I'm going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's thinking I need to be seen as a certain kind of person, or wanting to show up as my best self, whatever that means, I was getting calls from one of my writing mentors. His name's Chuck. He's 80 years old. He might be 82 now, 81.
Oh, nice.
And I love the guy. He's taught me so much, and he'd called me a couple times last week and left a voicemail, and I just didn't answer. And well, I keep my phone on do not disturb, so most of the calls that I get, I don't answer. Yeah, but he left a voicemail, and I was like, okay, I'll call him back. And I just kept putting it off, and it was like I realized, like in the back of my mind, I didn't want to. I was like kind of feeling sad or like introverted, and I didn't want to project that onto someone else or like have or show up in a state that wasn't who I think David is like this like upbeat, perfect person. I don't know. And so finally, I called him back and we talked, and it went great. And I was thinking the same thing you were thinking, like, why was I resisting? Why was I holding out so much resistance to this? And just thinking about all the minutes that I was like
an energy
lost to that. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's good when you have other people, like a friend or someone. Like yesterday I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do, I'm working with these readings. And she's like, just post it. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, just post it. You can always take it down. But it's like, when you really think it's someone's like putting that in front of you and you have to question, like, really, what is it? It ultimately is always back to you. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's because I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm ready. Like, when are you ever ready for anything?
Yeah, once you're in it, if you're in it, you're ready. And if you feel as if it's like this is something that's in the back of at least in my experience, I feel like if it's something if it's in the back of my mind and it stays with me for quite some time, it's something that I should be doing.
Interesting, yeah. And when you do it, like that, when you spoke to him, you realize like it just vanished, right? Like none of the stories were accurate.
Yeah, nothing bad happened. Like I'm still alive. I'm still
And often I think it's when you do it, you're realizing all the good that came. It's like, am I depriving myself of all the good? Because what I want ultimately, like you want to do whatever, his mentoring, your writing, whatever it is. And what you got out of the conversation was probably so much better and bigger than what you were gaining by not calling of security, and not confronting it. So it does make us question. I mean, thanks, Brad. Bradley's always very good at pointing that out. He's saying, what things? Well, I would say it's the feelings for me. A lot of it is motivated by discomfort.
And what things, I guess, is he referencing what things that you need to attend to?
Yeah, like what interactions are you putting off what things? And I guess it's the association, what things am I associating with the discomfort, right? Because it's just the anticipation of pain. And then I think, well, gosh, look at all the things you mentioned earlier in part one that you've been through, all the times you struggled, all the times you overcame probably tremendous discomfort hiking 2,000 some odd miles, all those times. And then you're like, oh my gosh, why am I worried about, I know I could overcome it. He's saying you were speaking vaguely. Okay, specific examples. All right, well, okay, having to put together a pricing structure on my services. I'm having people now ask me, well, what do you charge? And I'd like to purchase this. And I have to sit down now and say, okay, how long is this service for? What am I going to charge? And am I going to have tiers? And this is provoking in me a lot of anxiety because I don't know. And I'm like, well, I guess that's why I just have to keep practicing. But I don't want to even tackle it. And also, I think I have to know the big answer.
Interesting.
As opposed to just, okay, I got to just start going in. All right, well, I'll put it for an hour and a half. And if it goes over or under, whatever.
Or if the pricing structure even has to be absolute, or that that it's not subject to change. So like, what's one service that you're looking to offer right now? Readings?
Well, I put together an integrated approach to readings, and I combine birth energies based on birth cards, astrology, numerology, something called human design. I don't know if you've been exposed to it. And, they're intuitively guided, and I use the tarot and oracle as well. And it's just, a complete experience where we just dive in and come up with this soul purpose, which is really coded into all of our existence. And usually people are like, wow, I already knew that about myself, but I didn't know why, or I didn't understand. It's been very satisfying going through the process. but they're each different, because for some people more information is garnered through the birth card. For others it's through human design. We just kind of flow with it. And I've been struggling, like, what am I going to call it and all these things. And it's like debilitating when I feel I have to have the whole thing figured out, as opposed to, every single person that I've listened to has said, look, when I first started, go look back at my first YouTube video, go look back at my first service. It's a process, but it's this feeling of like having to have it figured out.
Right.
Like a book, even. Like, oh, I want to write a book. Oh, it's got to be first draft. Perfect.
Yeah, not going to happen. Yeah. And what I'll say with pricing, Karen, is I know for me, what I experienced was there's a deep identity connection between you and the price.
Yeah.
And in some ways there needs to be more space created between those two things. Yeah. And I know for me that was difficult, because it was, a book is something that I worked 3 years on. And so if I'm charging $6.99 for an ebook, like that's my identity built into that.
So true. Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, you do want to value your time. And at the same time, I think it's important to let go of this being tied to your worth and who you are as a person.
No, and thank you for saying that, because that will go against a lot of traditional marketing advice that you can just easily find on the internet somewhere. They're like, this is your time. How do you value yourself? And it can play with your mind. But I like the way you're approaching it. And so, did you have to face that when you priced your ebook?
Yeah. And I felt weird taking money from people in general.
Yeah. And that's an interesting word, taking.
Right.
It's like, isn't that interesting?
And I guess I had to reframe that from a process of taking to realizing it's a process of exchange. Money is just a form of energy that we're exchanging with each other, and seeing that there's expectations that come with that exchange. And it does feel good to uphold your end of the bargain on that exchange.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. So pricing according to, expectation and value and all that good stuff.
Yeah. No, that's nice. And I have to thank you, David, for that, and Bradley for initiating that.
Well, he's right. I think some of the most important things in our lives are the things that we're avoiding, or the things that we're not talking about. And I think good interviewers, good discussioners, they see what's not being said, and they bring that to the forefront. And I think that's our duty in our own individual lives. In my life, to see, yes, I'm spending a lot of time working on these things and writing a book and moving, but what is my relationship with my family look like? What is my relationship with myself look like? What's my self-love levels looking like? Because it doesn't matter how many episodes of a podcast I put out, or how many books I write. It's never going to be enough for me. And art is like an open-ended process, an open-ended commitment that we make with life. Yeah. And so it's just being
beautiful, David. Yeah.
I got that from Chuck. I can't claim that as mine.
That's good.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter how many individual things we create. What matters, I feel like, for me, is how I feel about myself, and looking inward. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. And also, when you can know you're going to inward, sometimes I like it when I'm like, oh, this is going to be uncomfortable, so I'm going to have fun. I'm going to just get uncomfortable and do it, And then it's so funny, because usually after it's over, I'm like, oh, it was so much worse in my head, thinking the reaction. But yeah, being in touch with yourself, having that awareness, and being balanced.
Totally. What's an interaction that you had that you felt like it was going to be something, but it didn't turn out to be the way you expected, or like so bad?
Oh my God, so many things. I'm very shy at heart, so there's just so many times when having to speak my true voice and share my real feelings about something are terrifying, or telling someone what I need, and And there's just been so many instances where I've been like, oh, they're gonna get so upset, they're gonna, yell at me, and it's gonna get worse. And often they're like, oh, okay, now I know that, thanks, it's good, and I was like, why was I so scared? Or revealing feelings, in intimate romantic situations, like sharing how I really feel. It's like so scary, and then the person's like, oh, thank you, I think you're kind of great too, and you realize this is not this fear that you've created in your mind. So I face that a lot with my own inner shyness. I think a lot of it is just feeling, oh my God, I think I shared this with you when you wrote something about astrology. I said, I have a Scorpio moon, and often people with Scorpio moons feel like if you really knew what I thought, you would hate me. You would think I was an awful person. And it's like this fear of revealing that. So I see that play out quite a bit. So I try to overcome that and say, well, it's okay, try it. What's the worst that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's trade-offs. Like life is a series of trade-offs, and am I willing to live with this thing being unspoken, or am I wanting to trade off the consequences of speaking these words?
Yeah.
And the consequences being not necessarily good or bad, but just being what they are. I think that's important, and to share our true feelings in relationships.
Always. I mean, because then you have a chance at having something healthy, with anything. Because if even you're living with your parents, I'm living with my mom. If I don't explain to her what I need, then how will she know? And then it just could start all kinds of problems and conflicts, and then it's harder to find that harmony after. Whereas if I say, hey, I need this, or what do you need? Asking her what she needs, and that kind of communication. But when you're, oh gosh, I mean, I think back some ugly times when I was afraid of all those kind of interactions and conversations, that there probably built up so much misunderstandings between me and others. And I would feel like I'm supposed to be the great communicator. Like I could communicate, but I was shitty at it, because I wasn't able to talk about what I needed or how I was feeling.
I feel like I can be that person sometimes too. Like, externally, objectively, it might seem like, okay, this person knows how to speak. Right. This person's a great communicator. Right. And yet they're saying nothing of substance. They're saying they're avoiding speaking what matters. Correct. Yeah. Which is the underlying feelings and the way we feel about each other and ourselves, and it's very important to
very real. And there's so much of that happening. I mean, people are having all these kind of, think about when you go to work and everyone's like, how are you? Great. How are you? Great. It's like,
that's really? The worst. That's the worst. Well, and I had a movement friend recently, and I asked her, like, how have you been doing? Like, it seemed like the other day you weren't doing so well. And she just told me everything that was going on in her life, and she said, I think it's just better to be, what do I have to lose? Like, it's better to just be honest with the way my life is going and the way I feel about myself. Yeah, not try and sugarcoat it and just say like, oh, I'm just great, and wear this mask all day. Yeah. And man, how heavy that mask can be. Oof. Yeah. And just to take it off and just say the truth, speak the truth as best you can. Truth.
And when we really think about what are the consequences, because consequences of not saying something is so heavy, but when you say something and it's like, what's the worst the person says? It gets upset, or, you manage it, you can work with it. I always admire people, and I see they have really open throat chakras, and they just have no problem saying things.
Just say whatever on their mind.
Oh, I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah, those people get into trouble, but it's good. It's a good kind of trouble. Yeah, it feels like
it's a good kind of trouble as long as we realize that we don't want to harm anyone. Like anytime, isn't that true? Like with all right speech, it's about the right communication.
Yeah, I think it's morally bad to hurt people physically, and to intentionally want to hurt other people with our words, but. If we're speaking truth, then it's not up to us how the other person feels about what we're saying. I mean, sometimes the truth can hurt, the truth can sting, and again, it's just up to us to decipher whether we're willing to live with the consequences of speaking the truth, or live with the sin of omission of not speaking the truth.
Yeah. And that's a responsibility. I remember saying to someone, oh, I don't really want to talk about, politics. It's like, I don't like disharmony. And they looked at me like, for real? Like, like, are you sure that you want to own that statement? Like, it's so important. We have to, and it made me rethink everything.
Yeah, totally. With politics too, I've been averse to it my whole life. Yeah. And just within the last year, I started getting more interested in it. And I don't know if you're familiar with Leo Gura, who runs this YouTube channel called actualize.org.
Oh, no.
But he came out with this video on conscious politics, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, that is.
Is
that possible?
I think so. And, I think we need more quote unquote conscious people to be involved in politics is just, of the people, matters of the people. And, if we I don't know, it feels egotistical for me to call myself a conscious person. Like, I don't know, I'm more conscious than I used to be in some ways. But if conscious people aren't getting involved in politics, then unconscious people are ruling those conscious people and in charge of the decision making, which I think we're seeing a lot of that right now. And
so well said. And that's why this person looked at me like, for real? Like, like, you have to have an opinion and get involved and be part of it. A strong angel is saying it's not what you say, but how it's said. I think there's definitely responsibility in how we, I guess, set our tone and body language.
The underlying. I think Goenka has a good example of that, of calling someone a pig. You could really call someone a pig, or you can, just joke around with them and use the same words. And so, I think you're right. It's how we say things sometimes that matters most. Although I do think the content also matters.
Yes. And I think increasingly, as everybody finds that comfort point or of a comfort in being uncomfortable, it's that, because right now things are so sensitive. So to say anything, I wound up getting into a very complicated discussion yesterday that I was like attacked, and I was like, oh gosh. And I thought, well, I don't even need that. Like, that takes energy. Like, I'll just go back to where I was. Just better off not saying anything, because I don't want to have to recuperate from that interaction. But
totally,
there's that discomfort. I guess I'm hoping, and maybe over time I'll see this and be able to speak to it, because I'm not there yet. But maybe once you have that comfort, or you have that comfort in the discomfort, it's easier, and you sort of just flow with it and accept it. But know that you did the right thing by saying what you felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think it's healthy to be able to stay in those types of uncomfortable conversations. And the places where we're getting triggered point to all the places where we're not yet free. And to be able to live in those places as they're occurring and to go with them rather than wanting to leave or to think that, oh, my energy needs to be replenished in some sort of specific way. I think it's good to stay in conversation and to see what comes of it, because I think there's a scale from like, if you think of it as a line of development, you have how sensitive you are, and then you also have how adaptive you are. And I see these things as, some people are overly sensitive, and they can't take a joke. They can't, everything offends them. Yeah. Everything's so offensive. And it's healthy to be in touch with your sensitive side and your emotions and your feelings. And yet these things live alongside the rational mind. And I think the rational mind is something that often gets demonized in the spiritual world. Oh, like thoughts and ideas and all
ego.
This is ego. All of this is
like. Did you ever listen to Matt Kahn? He was like,
no,
ego's like something you got to run out of town.
Yeah, it's like no.
Where'd that come from?
You're not gonna
join together and run the ego out of town. He's like, that's not what it's about. And
same thing with like the ego is the enemy. And while I see what they're trying to say, and I see the intention of like, okay, the ego isn't who you are necessarily. It's there's just something beyond that, and it's good to be in touch with rationality as well, and sometimes maybe not trust your feelings or not trust your intuitive sense to be offended, and begin to rationalize, why am I offended? Why am I feeling
Very good point.
these feelings? And realize that realize that I'm a human being, and yes, I'm sensitive, and I can also be adaptive in certain situations. I don't have to be at the whim to every little feeling that I feel.
Oh gosh, that's very hard, especially for highly sensitive people. It's like exhausting. Exhausting, yeah.
Yeah.
Exhausting. So someone saying, oh my God, yes, speak your truth. When it comes from the heart, it's great. Yes. Yeah, because our feelings are right for us. I mean, it's hard when you're speaking to people and they're like, this is the way it is. It's like, okay, it's the way I feel, because no one can deny you your feeling. But I think it's nice to question things, when I see some extreme behavior, or, we're very polarized right now in the United States. And I look at that and I say, well, this is there to show us something. So maybe each side is on to something.
Totally.
Maybe these are like little Buddhas there, like each one showing me some kind of amazing wisdom. And it's not to choose one or the other, or, ultimately, I guess we do when we vote, ultimately choose, but just to be open-minded, because, I'm just been so trained as you in Vipassana of the middle way. Like,
right.
Where's that middle way? Where is it?
Totally. And, seeing the nation that we live in as a complex place of varying cultures and varying belief systems. And, the way I see it is progressives are meant to point out the problems and lead us into creating change and creating a more progressive society, a better future, where conservatives are meant to conserve the things that are of value. Yep. And where progressives might want to destroy or leave behind some of the past and constantly live in the present moment, there are some things that ground us into to being human and to society. And so both sides, all perspectives do have some grain of truth, some value to offer.
Agree. I really agree. Yeah, and it does take some patience and discernment, I think, to probably listen to all sides. But I think that's kind of a mark of an educated person. I don't know if you have to be trained in a formal way or go through an institution and receive a degree. I think education, in the true sense, is when you're able to see and listen to all sides and weigh in with your own opinion,
right.
and overcome that ignorance of just, snap judgment of whatever you're conditioned to believe and how you were raised. There's a lot of good points out there, and someone's saying here, pick your battles. So,
That's true as well. But I think you're onto something, with the idea of the ability to see multiple perspectives and to see truth in multiple perspectives is a leap in consciousness in and of itself, that realizing that some people don't have that ability yet and feel as if they live in a place of absolute truth.
Yeah.
And constantly reaffirm their own worldview. And, you can look up spiral dynamics.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot with that content.
A very interesting model that models the development of human consciousness and the psychology, the state of the human mind. Yeah. And you could look up the 9 stages of the ego. I forget who studies that is. Some woman. Okay. But very, very interesting work as well. And it's a big part of the ego's development is to be able to see multiple perspectives. And we live in a world where all these perspectives are coming up against each other, and it's up to us to get along and play nicely. Yeah. And realize that these perspectives are going to be with us for quite some time, and to begin to see the other sides and reach across the aisle. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. It takes patience, though, and lots
time.
Of patience, lots of time. Tolerance, I think, is a big one that I can work on and that I see missing in society. Tolerance with people who are different from us, people who have different perspectives, people who live completely different lives. Yes. And seeing the shared humanity within all of us, and seeing the as you like to speak about, the oneness in all of us, the things that unite us.
So beautiful. And you just gave me a moment. I get in touch with that. It's so hopeful. It's so real. It's so true. That's why I know it's like, regardless of the conflict, regardless of the pain that everyone's demonstrating, myself included, I just feel underlying it all is this amazing love, and it's going to carry us. Maybe not in this lifetime. I don't know. Who knows? We don't know. But I do believe it's there. We'll talk more about that next week with Sajana, because she is the representation of universal love, and we'll get a blast of that here.
I'm excited to join that conversation, Karen.
I am too. David, this has been so wonderful, and you really are a lovely conversationalist. I just can't believe like almost 2 hours has passed, and my dying battery is reminding me.
Yeah, same here.
Such great time has passed. But tell us a resource or a book besides your own, The Trail Provides, that you'd like to share. You have shared throughout the entire broadcast a bunch of them, but I want to focus just on one that we can highlight for everybody.
Okay. Can I offer two, Karen?
Yes, two. Go.
All right. So the first one is it's going to be Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. That was like the first spiritual book that I really got into, and am wanting to revisit it again. I've got it on my bedside table. And for those into fiction, do you read any fiction, Karen?
No.
Okay. Well, if you do ever get into fiction, or for anyone listening, I really enjoy this guy, Haruki Murakami. He's a Japanese author, and a lot of my writing, I'm inspired by him. I've read
nice.
probably 8 of his books, and I'm just addicted to his writing, and he's wonderful. And so I'd recommend the book Kafka on the Shore.
Ooh, I even like the title.
Yep.
Nice.
It's a good one. I won't tell you much about it. I'll say that it's fantastical surrealism, and leave it at that.
Cool. Well, thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
I just wanted to thank you, Karen. Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure. And like we said before, I think time is so valuable. And just for you sharing your time with me
likewise.
means a lot. And so for anyone listening, I think we would appreciate hearing from you, your feedback.
Yes.
If you enjoyed listening, or if you have any questions or just want to connect.
I like that.
I'm here to meet people and to meet new people and connect. So
I like that a lot.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise. All right. Well, at this point, we'll end the broadcast, part 2, this episode 16 with David Smart. And thank you guys so much again. Have an amazing rest of the weekend. And we'll see you soon. I love you all. Mwah. Love you, David. Bye.
Love you, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Love you guys.